Everybody, we're back, and I'll keep my fingers crossed that the audio on this is better than it was in the previous piece of crap that I put out there. Okay, it says it's upcoming here, but as you know, you're watching it. I want to try to get in here and make sure that on the live stream that it. Hang on 1 second here. Let me make sure that it is actually playing. I want to click over here to Murtek on Rumble again. And now it's not even coming up. Okay, I've been into this a minute. All right. And the video, I don't get it. I don't get it. I hate it when Rumble does this. I really do. Okay. Now it says we're live. Let's see here. Okay. Now it says we're live. Oh, seems to be much better. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see here. Refresh it again. Okay, so you can hear me. Okay. Talking. Now it says we're live. Oh, seems to be much better. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, let's. Hi, Susie Pohl. Hi, Debbie BS. Thank you for coming back. Again, I apologize. We're going to. Yes, it is. It is better. Thank goodness. I hate it when I have to do this. I mean, I'm trying to do this kind of professional like, but thank you, Susie Pohl. But man, Rumble makes it tough when they give you this software that works sometimes and not other times. Okay, we're going to take off here with Doug in Exile. Trump's Arizona win was bigger than expected. Well, bigger than I expected. Amazing. But where's the proof, Doug? Let's see if he has any proof. Where's the proof?
Arizona is turning away from Democrat politics and toward Republicans, toward MAGA. I'm going to give you all the evidence so now you'll know. This is about who Katie Hobbs picked as her lieutenant governor running mate. It reveals everything. Check this out. This is from Political Polls. It says new Arizona Governor Hobbs names former Mesa Mayor John Giles, a former Republican, as her running mate. This is branding, guys. I've done marketing my whole life. Branding is a former Republican. Republican. Why is she so scared? If she's so confident being a Democrat, why would she market that this guy is a former Republican? Simple. She got smeared. Not she got smeared. A bunch of Arizonans flipped and went on the side of Andy Biggs. So this is just from the last primary for governor. Andy Biggs smeared it so bad that all of the Democrat Party in Arizona are completely horrified. He's going to take the whole thing when they have the final run. Arizona GOP primary for governor. Here's Andy Biggs didn't just win it. He cleared 70% in 14 of 15 counties in Arizona. That is something that no Republican can come close to in the entire United States. It's what every Republican wishes they could do. Biggs got 435,000 or 73% of the votes. The next one down, Schweikert got 14%. Biggs won all 15 counties. And then in the weakest are some of the things like Apache and Maricopa, which are like Democrat strongholds. Schweikert's ceiling was in his own backyard. Maricopa was his best county at 16%. That means he is a Democrat or a rhino. Now, what does all this mean? This is the eviscerating article, though, that tells you everything you need to know. Democrat Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs chooses former Republican Mayor John Giles as her running mate. Why is this a big deal? Because Arizona is one of just 5 states without a lieutenant governor position. That will change in January. They're going to get, she's basically saying he's going to be my lieutenant governor. Democrat Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs has picked a Republican turned independent to be her running mate. By the way, he's no Republican at all. This goon supported Kamala Harris. He's for transing the children, okay? Independent to her running mate in a tough re-election campaign, setting up a bipartisan ticket as voters elect the state's first lieutenant governor. Now, she's hoping that Arizonans are stupid, especially Republicans, that they're going to believe that he's an actual Republican. Any Republican that votes for Katie Hobbs and John Giles are not Republicans. These are middle weirdos. They want to destroy Arizona. They want to open the border. Hobbs' selection Tuesday of Giles, that's today, a former mayor of Mesa, a Phoenix suburb that is Arizona's 3rd largest city, is an overture to the Republicans and conservative independents. She must win in a state that was once a GOP stronghold. Republicans have expanded their voter registration over the Democrats since Hobbs eked out a narrow victory over Kari Lake. This is great news. We're getting more Republicans registered. So now she wants to get them to come and vote for Democrats. What's the point, Arizona? I would argue that the Republicans that are registering to vote since 2020 are almost all MAGA. It's a fierce Kari Lake, who is a fierce ally of Trump. This is the good news, guys. She's considered the most vulnerable Democrat governor in the entire country. This is going to be an easy pickoff, an easy win for her opponent. Let me tell you about Biggs, Republican nominee Andy Biggs, who last week picked Sinecare. I'm going to show you his running mate, who's fantastic, a farmer and Republican former state lawmaker. She's wonderful. To be his running mate, Kerr's rural roots balance Biggs's base in parts of Metro Phoenix. But here's the thing, both Biggs and Giles. So Andy Biggs, who's running as a Republican, is a Mormon. And then Katie Hobbs picks this Giles guy, the ex-Republican, and he's a Mormon. So they're trying to bring in the Latter-day Saints vote in Arizona. In an interview with Associated Press, before Hobbs publicly announced that she had picked Giles, she said that she considers herself to be a conservative. Oh, brother. Said he stuck around the Republican Party probably longer than he should have. This is about Giles. He tried saving them. This is not true at all. Giles, who was Mesa's mayor from 2014 to 2025, again, Arizona, what are you thinking in Mesa? Has been a vocal Trump critic and has endorsed Democrats, including Trump's 2024 rival, then Vice President Kamala Harris. Giles spoke in favor of Harris at the Democratic National Convention, saying Trump's politics would hurt Mesa. Giles also backed Democrats running against Trump allies, including, so he backed Hobbs in her run against Lake. He backed Mark Kelly, and he backed Ruben Gallego, the pervert. As mayor, Giles signed a proclamation promoting equal treatment for lesbians, gays, bisexual, and trans residents. The Biggs campaign, in anticipation of Hobbs's announcement, launched a website highlighting Giles' support for Kamala Harris in 2024. So Andy Biggs is already attacking her lieutenant governor as supporting Kamala Harris. As a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Giles can be an ambassador for Hobbs. Mormons in my audience, are you approving this? I got Mormons watching this show. Are you guys voting for Katie Open Borders Hobbs and LGBTQ Katie Hobbs? Is that what we're doing now? Pro-choice Katie Hobbs? Is that the Mormon church now? Mormons, are you going to fall for this? Church members make up about 6% of Arizona population. Latter-day Saints, widely known as Mormons, have been a reliably Republican voting bloc for decades. But many are ambivalent about Trump since he first ran for the White House. So Mormons are ambivalent about him because he cusses and he's foul. But you're okay with LGBTQ? You're okay with same-sex marriage now? Mormons, you're okay with abortion, with killing babies in the womb? Is that what you're doing because Trump cusses? You're okay with an open border and the crimes and assaults that go on in Arizona because Trump has a foul mouth? Democrats have been working to woo Latter-day Saints, turned off by Trump's penchant for foul language and demeaning rhetoric towards women and people of color, which clashes with the church's values of humility, morality, and compassion. Are you guys falling for this? But here's the thing. Andy Biggs is also a member of the church. If you're Republican and you're a Mormon, then you go for Andy Biggs. Very strange mix on this one. Wait, there's more. Here's that Senate Kerr. This is the one who's running as Biggs' lieutenant governor. And she is looking forward to debate that John Giles guy that Katie Hobbs picked. Looking forward to the lieutenant governor's race debate October 5th with Democrat primary voter John Giles. Notice she doesn't call him Republican. Only Katie Hobbs calls John Giles a Republican, trying to blur things. John Giles, who's a Democrat, pro-choice, pro-LGBTQ. We should discuss why Arizona Women's Bill of Rights legislation and SB 1583, which protected children from predators. Why did Katie Hobbs vetoed both? Maybe John Giles will explain why. So this reveals a huge strategy on the Democrats to try to desperately hold on to the governor's office in Arizona because Katie Hobbs, like they said, is the most vulnerable. But I believe Arizona's going to flip. I believe it's coming back to the Republican side thanks to Andy Biggs. Pray for him. We will support him. I'm not a Mormon. I'll vote for a Mormon all day over Katie Hobbs. Just a scandal in Arizona. Complete left wing. This is Kamala Harris, Ruben Gallego, who's basically a shorter version of Eric Swalwell. Are those Arizona voter values? Are those Mormon values in Arizona or Latter-day Saints? I don't care what you guys call yourself. I care about how you vote, what the actions that you do. I'm Doug in Exile.
Hard to believe, but a family's pet cat.
Arizona is
This week, Senator Ron Johnson, chairman of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, and Senator Rand Paul, chairman of the Homeland Security Committee, dropped the very first batch of text messages pulled directly off Anthony Fauci's own government-issued iPhone, the very phone he used while running the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases throughout the pandemic.
Okay, sorry about that. The audio wasn't coming through. Let me refresh.
Fauci's own government-issued iPhone, the very phone he used while running the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases throughout the pandemic. And what that phone is revealing is shocking even some of Fauci's most ardent defenders. On January 25th, 2021, Fauci sat down and typed out a text message to CDC Director Rochelle Walensky and Surgeon General Vivek Murthy. Fauci wrote, quote, "I asked around a bit more, and another issue came up that you need to be aware of. Since many people have significant cytokine storm and fever after the second dose, this theoretically could be associated with miscarriage in the first trimester." So here we have the nation's top infectious disease bureaucrat privately telling his own colleagues that the second dose of the COVID vaccine could theoretically cause miscarriages in pregnant women during their first trimester. Now, you may be curious what Rochelle Walensky, the head of the CDC, wrote back to him. It turns out she didn't push back. She didn't say, well, that's not possible. She told Fauci that his concern was, quote, definitely a good point, especially after dose 2. So now we got both the NIAID director and the CDC director privately agreeing that this was a real concern worth taking seriously. Meanwhile, Surgeon General Vivek Murthy chimed in as well, writing that he was, quote, surprised to see the WHO put out a very strong statement saying that they do not recommend Moderna in pregnant women. Now, note, even the World Health Organization had doubts serious enough to warn against the Moderna shot for pregnant women. All the while, Fauci and his surrogate legacy news media were deliberately mocking and marginalizing anyone who would even so much as hint that the vaccines had deleterious side effects. Who would have ever imagined that the vaccine hesitant and the WHO, the World Health Organization, would actually be on the same side of this? But here's where it gets truly evil. Just over a week later, on February 3rd, 2021, Anthony Fauci went in front of the cameras for a Journal of the American Medical Association live stream, and he told the entire country something completely different.
Since the EUA and under the EUA, approximately 20,000 pregnant women have been vaccinated with no red flags, as we say, and this is being monitored by the CDC and the FDA.
So you just heard the good doctor, right? 20,000 pregnant women have been vaccinated. No red flags whatsoever. That's what he told the American public just days after privately flagging exactly that risk to his own colleagues in writing. He was saying one thing in private and he was saying the opposite thing in public. And he didn't stop there. He kept doubling down on this lie for months, even years, later pointing to CDC tracking data on pregnant women and declaring, quote, it's pretty clear that pregnant women should get vaccinated. Now, we were told ad nauseum to trust the science. Trust the science. Trust the science. I trust the science. Remember Nancy Pelosi? I trust the science, right? And millions of pregnant women did just that. They did what they were being told by all these legacy media outlets to do. They trusted Anthony Fauci as the ultimate authority on COVID. How many of them rolled up their sleeves believing there was zero link to miscarriage only to lose a pregnancy that they're going to spend the rest of their lives wondering about? Unfortunately, we know the answer to that. According to a 2021 New England Journal of Medicine study that tracked 827 pregnancies exposed to the mRNA vaccine, they found 104, quote, spontaneous abortions, i.e. miscarriages. But here's the part they buried. Of those 827 women, 700 got vaccinated in their third trimester, when miscarriage risk was essentially zero. Only 127 got the shot in the first or second trimester, which is exactly where all 104 of those miscarriages occurred. Now, you do the math with me. 104 miscarriages divided by 127 shots. That's an 82% miscarriage rate among women vaccinated in the first or second trimester. 82%. And here's the monstrous thing. They knew it. Fauci and his team knew it. Here's Senator Ron Johnson.
An 82% miscarriage rate with women who got the injection in the first, second trimester. I mean, that is shocking. And they knew it. They knew it. They're not that stupid. They're just that devious.
As maddening as this is, the good news is that Fauci's day of reckoning does appear to be at hand. Wait until you see what's rising up to finally bring this guy to justice.
Okay, he's going into a commercial here. So let me get past that. And again, I apologize for the audio. I mean, when I came back on and talked about playing Dr. Steve Turley again, I clicked the mic button and I assumed that my audio was on. Let me make sure that it's on now. Yeah, okay, it's on now. But I apologize for that. So, yeah, we're going to go long tonight, but this is so important about Dr. Quacky. I mean, Dr. Fauci. No, I mean Dr. Quacky. That we needed to play this.
Information from them, giving them a recommendation that could potentially harm their baby. I don't know the process when you're the director of something like the NIH, but if you have reservations, shouldn't the public know those reservations?
I mean, especially for something like the COVID shots, which were brand new back then. I mean, and Tony Fauci was a major figure in trying to get those COVID shots off, past the finish line. He owed the American public some transparency regarding his honest thoughts. Generally, it's the FDA that regulates products and checks for side effects and so on. The NIH develops the science that produces the new vaccines. There's usually like one lane and another lane. Tony Fauci, in some sense, was out of his lane, push and then use that power to tell the American one thing when he really thought another.
That's Fauci's successor, Jay Bhattacharya, the director of the NIH, blasting Fauci for being out of his lane. I think that was a very good explanation. Fauci was totally out of his lane and using that power to tell America one thing when he really thought another. So you could see that's how he kind of held this cognitive dissonance in place. He would say something privately within his infectious diseases lane, but then he would say something publicly that was more for FDA approval, nothing having to do with the science or anything like that. And it's not just that. We now know, thanks to Tulsi Gabbard's efforts, we now know that Fauci acted as the behind-the-scenes architect who steered the entire intelligence community away from the lab leak conclusion by supplying hand-picked scientists whose input shaped official intelligence community assessments. So we now know that he served as the public-facing propagandist, I should say, who knowingly pushed disinformation and suppressed dissent, like the Barrington Declaration, right, which was a group of Ivy League scientists from here in the States and very notable scientists across the pond in Europe, who all publicly dissented from Fauci's assessments and recommendations. They were deliberately marginalized during this period. We now know that as early as January 31st, 2020, Fauci received an email from the director of the nation's largest biomedical research facility warning that COVID-19 appeared to be engineered. He actively suppressed the lab leak hypothesis and instead crafted a public narrative blaming a wet market in China. He's been accused of repeatedly lying about all this under oath to Congress. So to say that the latest text revelations are just the tip of the iceberg, frankly, that seems to be an understatement in all of this. And so it's no wonder that more and more state AGs are looking to indict Fauci. Just hours after the Senate voted to hold Fauci in contempt of Congress for pleading the fifth 111 times, Florida Attorney General James Uthmeyer announced the issuance of a formal state subpoena demanding Fauci turn over records on what he knew, when he knew it, about vaccine safety and efficacy. And boy, that's going to be even more explosive now with these text messages. Louisiana Attorney General Liz Muriel, she's issued a similar subpoena along with the states of Alabama and West Virginia. And behind these 4 active states stands an even bigger army waiting in the wings, a coalition of a stunning 17 Republican attorneys general from Texas to Missouri to Kansas, who spent over a year building the legal framework to bring Fauci to justice in courtrooms Biden's pardon can't touch. Remember, presidential pardons, especially auto pen ones, only protect you from federal prosecution, not state prosecution. And that's exactly the storm that's brewing over the horizon as we speak. So let's put this all together. We already knew from his own diary that Fauci was privately obsessing over his own celebrity status while Americans were dying by the tens of thousands. Even Bill Maher has had to distance himself from Fauci over those embarrassing revelations. We already knew he privately admitted that the Chinese wet market was not the source of the virus while publicly pushing that exact narrative. We already knew he sat through a Senate hearing under subpoena, invoked the Fifth Amendment more than 100 times. And now we know that while he was assuring pregnant women that there was nothing to worry about, no red flags, none, he was privately telling the CDC director that there was a theoretical miscarriage risk, one that his own colleague agreed was, quote, a good point. Senator Johnson says his team has only just scratched the surface of those 34,000 texts, and Fauci's own successor is out there confirming what conservatives have said for years, that this man told America one thing, all the while believing something else entirely. Every new revelation that comes out tells the exact same story. Fauci knew things he refused to tell you. And women, real American families, paid the price for his deliberate and self-serving silence.
Okay, there you have it, folks. And as Debbie BS said in the chat, they knew it. They knew it. Now, I mean, this is a special kind of evil. They knew that if women took this shot in the first or second trimester of their pregnancy, there was a big chance, an 82% chance, that they would have a miscarriage. Yet, they knew that, and they told you something different. It was safe and effective. It was not safe, and it wasn't effective. I've heard situation after situation, time after time, about people, even Biden and Dr. Jill took the vax, so supposedly, and yet they got COVID. So how intercoursingly effective is that? Okay, there you have it. Let me jump back over here and share some information from... My sound is still off. Unbelievable. Okay. Okay, let's see what Glenn Beck has to say here on every climate activist's worst nightmare just came true, and it's their fault. Amazing.
This story.
Okay, before we get into this, okay, let me say this about that. There's been a ton of information come out. Okay? This is information that couldn't be told or wasn't told by the mainstream media and these deep state swamp rats, just a couple of years ago. The only reason that this information is coming out is because of Donald Trump putting in Doge and opening up this information, declassifying it, so people can talk about it, okay? That's the only reason. Otherwise, we'd still be in the dark. They'd still be lying to us. Well, they still are lying to us. But other people are able to tell the truth now. You need to remember that. If it wasn't for Donald Trump, we wouldn't know any of this. It would all be speculation. we wouldn't have Fauci's own text and own documentation that he was lying to us. We wouldn't have this information about Arizona because nobody in the Biden administration definitely looked into it, but the Trump administration is. And that's the only reason that we're knowing this information. Okay, let's see what Glenn Beck has to say.
Will boggle your mind. Will boggle your mind. Study has come out in the Geophysical Research Letters this week with an explanation on why Europe is so hot. Now, why do you think? Why do you think? Ricky, do you know the answer to this? If you do, I don't want you to answer.
I know the answer because I get the Morning Brief newsletter every morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern.
All right.
But I'm not going to give it away.
Right.
Oh.
Okay. All right. All right. I would guess it's global warming, right? Global warming. Why is global warming? Because of pollution. We just aren't doing enough for pollution. Here's what the study came out and said. It's not the pollution. It's the lack of pollution. Europe has cut its sulfate emissions by roughly 80% over the last 30 years. Acid rain rules, low sulfur fuel standards, scrubbers on smokestacks, and all kinds of things. We were told to do it. We were strong-armed to do it. We were penalized if we didn't do it. We were called horrible human beings if we thought, well, this isn't really what the deal is. And one of the study authors told The Telegraph that since 1980, Europe now has warmed about 1 degree more than the rest of the Northern Hemisphere and 1.5 degrees more than the global average. And that's most of that is traced back to cleaning the air. How do I get a job where I can be that wrong, that public about it, and get a bigger budget? I want to know. I really do. Okay? By the way, the physics in this study, 242 years old. And you know who figured it out? A guy with a frickin' magnifying glass. You know what his name was? Benjamin Franklin. It's June 1783. There's a fissure that opens up in the Icelandic highlands, and all kinds of, toxic gas spews out of this, okay? Spends 8 months venting the largest lava flow of the last 1,000 years. And there's a haze that drifts across Europe, and they called it a dry fog. And the crops withered and livestock died, and Iceland, a quarter of the population died, okay? Ben Franklin was in Paris that summer. He just signed the Treaty of Paris, and he noticed, wow, the sun looks wrong. So he takes out a magnifying glass and he focuses the sunbeam like you used to do probably when you were a kid. You take a leaf and you focus the magnifying glass and you set the leaf on fire, okay? But he found that the light was so weak, it wouldn't, let me quote him, wouldn't scarce kindle brown paper, okay? So in December of 1784, he writes for the Manchester Literary and Philosophical Society. And he writes a paper and he calls it Meteorological Imaginations and Conjectures. Okay. What's his conclusion? His conclusion is the haze is blocking the sunlight. The ground froze early, the snow never really melted, and that's why winter has been so brutal. Sulfur in the air cools the ground. Benjamin Franklin, 1784. No satellite, no supercomputer, just a piece of glass and a scrap of brown paper. Okay? Now, July 1971, Science magazine publishes some, two boneheads from NASA Goddard. Okay? Their finding is that quadruple the aerosols in the atmosphere, and you'll drop global surface temperature by 3.5 degrees. They say it's going to be sufficient enough to trigger an ice age. Ooh. So wait, they're just saying the science that we already know from Ben Franklin, who only had a leaf and a magnifying glass. You know, people don't even realize that they're getting half the story online. If you only read one version of events, even from people you
Okay, let me get it past this commercial here.
Podcast, yeah.
But
And
here
no
again, isn't
ad
that amazing
comes-
how they lie to us?
April 28, 19% off. Think for yourself with Free Spoke.
Okay, it's amazing how they lie to us about everything. About everything. Okay, now, you know, they're doing these chemtrails in the sky. You know, of course, the chemicals that they're using are poisonous, but who knows? I'm still out on that one. As far as, you know, the jury's out on that one, whether that's good or not good.
April 28, 1975, Newsweek runs The Cooling World. Earth's climate is cooling. Food production is about to collapse. The drop could begin quite soon. Perhaps only 10 years from now, we can be in an ice age. I grew up in this era. I remember all this crap. The wheat belts of Canada and the Soviet Union, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. They're all going to be gone. We're all going to be dead. We're all going to be frozen to death. Woolly mammoths will be roaming the earth again, and they'll be impaling you with their big tusks. The melting ice cap. It's not melting, it's growing. In fact, it's so big, what we should do is, this was an actual scientific trick. Take black soot and put it all, sprinkle it. I don't know how many bags we'd need, but sprinkle the black soot all over the polar ice cap, because the black would attract and hold in the heat, and so we'd melt the polar ice cap. Good thing we didn't do that, huh? That's 10 years, from 1975 to 1985. In that 10 years, world grain production more than doubled. The UN's food agency has this year global cereal harvest at a record of 2.96 billion tons, and the wheel continues to turn, and nobody notices. Nobody notices. March 20, 2000, independent.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause this here and move on to Vince on the Bongino report. But again, let me give this guy a thumbs up. I am subscribed to his YouTube channel. I share his information on Murtech.com. But again, more truth. That's what I'm pushing here, folks. I'm pushing the truth. All right, no nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth. That's the deal here. Okay, so let me get back over here. And oops. Yep, get back over here, slide down here, and see what Vince has to say. It's 9 o'clock now, and we're going to run about 10 or 15 minutes of Vince on the Bongino report, and go from there. Here we go. Bongino report, and go from there. Here we go. And go from there. Here we go. All right, let me get this back here.
All right. Holy cow. Who's here from Wisconsin? I've got some Wisconsinites in the chat this morning. I've already seen you. Good morning. What the hell's going on in your state? Where are those USB drives? Do you have them at your house? There's some election shenanigans going on. We might need the Save America Act. You know about that? Hey, everybody. Welcome to Vince on a Wednesday. Great to have you with us as always. Holy crap. We just got election results, well, all across the country. But in particular today, I want to talk to you about what just happened in Wisconsin. Francesca Hung, the big communist lady, was supposed to win easily, and she didn't. What the hell just happened there? We'll explore it in just a moment. Also, the president of the United States, people keep trying to kill him, so the Secret Service has come up with all sorts of creative ways to protect him. But the media is really upset about it, and they made it into a story about, of course, themselves. I'll explore that. And what else do we have today? Oh, also, we have a gentleman who just infiltrated
a communist meeting, and we've got the video to show you what exactly they've been plotting. It's kind of fascinating. He joins us on the program today. We have a lot to get to all ahead. On this edition of Vince, as always, great to be with you, the best audience anywhere. You're the best. We've got a lot to talk about. But before we get there, I want to tell you about one of our great sponsors. Brickhouse Nutrition supports the program, and we love them for it. And they're helping so many Americans get healthy. You know, people want to lose weight to get healthy. Makes a lot of weekly nutrition.
Let me get past this. Here we go.
All right. The amazing things going on in Wisconsin. Let's talk about it. Overnight, we get results from Wisconsin, and we find out in that gubernatorial race where the socialist lady, the communist Francesca Hong, was supposed to win very easily. She lost. Well, at least based on the official tally. She lost. Here's what we have this morning. New York Times with the survey results here from the polls as the polls come in. We've got David Crowley, the Milwaukee County executive, beating Francesca Hong by 3,000 votes in a race with over 623,000 ballots cast. A 3,000 vote margin of victory. Very small. Very small. David Crowley ekes it out. David Crowley, again, Milwaukee County executive. He is the choice of the Democrat establishment, and he was basically an afterthought throughout this race up until last night when suddenly he wins it. He wins it by the slimmest of margins. Now, the polls here suggested, again, that there was no way this was going to happen. My friend Andrew Follett has a summary of all of the polls leading up to Election Day. Isn't this fascinating? Look at this. State Navigate had Francesca Hong, up by 22 points. Public Policy Polling had Francesca Hong up 18. Marquette University, Hong plus 25. State Navigate, Hong plus 29. Are you seeing these polls? Public Policy Polling, Hong plus 20. This is all of the latest polling up until the very moment the election happens, and she gets stopped. Now I'm seeing TC Butts 13, great name, goes to show that the polls don't know shit. Okay, that is one theory here. That is one theory. But what about who's counting the election results? What about that component of this? Because I happen to think that there's one of two really interesting and unfortunate scenarios playing out. One is that the polls are once again catastrophically wrong. That's a perfectly good theory, that the polls were catastrophically wrong. They're just incapable of surveying the fine people of Wisconsin in order to establish who the hell is going to win any particular race. That could be what's going on. The other thing could be the establishment Democrats are trying to maintain their stranglehold on power. And how do establishment Democrats maintain their stranglehold on power when they can't rely on the voters? Fraud. Election shenanigans. Never put it past Democrats to use election shenanigans as a way to maintain power for the establishment. And so, were there any election shenanigans in Wisconsin last night? Well, if you were up very late watching the results, you may have noticed that Milwaukee, where this guy Crowley happens to be the county executive, happened to have a ton of problems last night with their USB sticks. You know, all the instead of huge boxes of ballots in the backs of cars being dumped at the last moment, these USB sticks seem to be the source of immense problems. In fact, here's last night one election official going, "Yeah, we're having trouble with the USB sticks in Milwaukee." Watch this.
And the results. What we uncovered was that 5 of the sticks had the audit log downloaded and not the results. It's a human error. These things can happen. So basically what we need to do is go back to the operations center and we're going to download out of those 5 machines the results and make sure that's not the audit log. So we have the reports printed from the first download. We're going to reprint and start the process so that we can compare those results. We invite you to come join us. Milwaukee Police Department will come with us too. And so we'll re-download those results and then send them back here to be uploaded.
5 machines are an issue?
Correct. Not the machines, the stick. So the download process was the audit log was downloaded, not the results.
Out of how many sticks?
9.
And so you will only be reviewing those 5 sticks.
Correct.
But we can't know all of the results, and we can't see these 4 sticks worth of results that were done correctly.
Can you?
What? It's so crazy. Now, look, under normal circumstances, let's pretend America's elections functioned as intended. Then you can make all sorts of like policy assessments. Why did she lose? Why did the polls get it wrong? But here you have to factor in election shenanigans into your assessment of whether or not the voters and their will were accurately represented last night in Wisconsin. You have to. Because when Democrats run election systems into the ground, it's actually sort of hard to establish just, is there a policy explanation for this? Like, for instance, is Francesca Hong's flip-flopping about whether or not she hates or loves Thanksgiving actually responsible for a 20-point swing in the direction of Crowley? I look at the USB stick thing and I'm going, hello, we've got election fraud going on all over the place. Watch, before you know it, suddenly all of these communists all across the country are going to be fighting for the Save America Act. We need election integrity. The Democrat establishment just stole it from us again, which, by the way, the Democrat establishment keeps stealing these races oftentimes from their socialist upstarts, especially Bernie Sanders, both in 2016 as well as in 2020. You'll remember that. They did that over and over and over again. And they may very well, in fact, all signs seem to point to yes, have done this in Wisconsin yesterday. So as the USB stick story was breaking last night and all these lefties were sitting around their televisions waiting for the results to see if Francesca Hong won this thing by 20 points or not, it created some chaos last night over on, I think this was NBC News. I started to distinguish these days between Ms. Now and NBC News, although that's a distinction without a difference. Here's Steve Kornacki, their election dude, watching this USB stuff last night and being like, I don't know what to do with this. Cut to watch.
Yeah, and I'm just reading the closed captioning, and so I don't have the fullest grasp of this. But it appears there were some irregularities in the reporting process. So I think they have to go back to the city location and do some work there, and then potentially kind of restart that process. That's what I'm gathering from the city right now, or from the county update.
Really, that's so we're back to square one on this.
Potentially, and she's going through the.
Okay, I want to back this up just a second here. Okay, 40 and 39.5, that's like 79.5. 79 plus 7.6, that's about 87%. Okay, wonder where the other 13% is. I don't know how many people are running in there. But, okay, they're showing, there might have been a dozen people running. I guess that may be where the other 13% is. But amazing, interesting.
And they'll go through an experience like that, and then they'll tell you with a straight face, but there's no problems with our elections. They're as clean as the driven snow. They're just perfectly fine.
All right, okay. Let me go ahead and move on. Let me click this Rumble link. This video will be in my daily news wrap-up. Okay. Let me clicking the Rumble link. It takes us over here to the video I just shared with you from the Bongino report, and Vince being the host. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All righty, let's jump back here. And yeah, Cotton Ball, I will check out the dimming, and I might share that in my daily news wrap-up one of these days. Let me give this a thumbs up here. But at any rate, let's go ahead and get this live chat and copy this into a comment as we normally do. Okay. And folks, when I normally, this is something else that kind of got cut off from when my audio, when I thought I demuted my microphone, but it didn't actually demute. Now, what I normally do is in Rumble, you can schedule a live stream, okay, which is normally what I do for my daily news wrap up. I set this up about 12 or 1 o'clock, 12 p.m. or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and let it run with the description of, what videos are going to be featured in the night's live stream. And a couple of times here lately, that has had some severe audio problems. But when I restart it, close the whole thing down and restart it, then it works much better. I think what I'm going to do from now on is do that, schedule that, put it on there about 12 or 1 o'clock and let it run all day. But then when I actually start my live stream, I'm just going to start it fresh and try that. Okay? Because I don't like it when the audio doesn't come through correctly. I'm trying to make this as nice and professional. Not that I'm a professional at this, but I would like to appear to be kind of professional. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to try that starting tomorrow. But at any rate, these videos that I share with you are videos that I've posted over here on Mertech.com, where I have over 40 no-nonsense, common sense, logic, and truth videos. This information, the link to it is in the description box below. Okay, so I would like to share all of this information with you, but unfortunately I don't have the time to do so. And that's why I've put together my Mertech Daily News Wrap-Up. Okay, it says I have 21 videos in here. Right here is the one from Bongino Report with Vince, where we just got out of that one. Also, oops, didn't mean to do that. Also, I'm going to share the MSNBC panics as late night ballot drop, which is pretty much what Vince was talking about. Destroys Democrat socialist. Okay, that's a little 18-minute video. Then we're going to get back into Vince. Then we're going to do Wendy Bell with J.D. Rucker and go with the Bongino Report, We the People News, X22 Report, On the Fringe. So great information here, folks. But in the meantime, go ahead and take a break. Grab a cup of coffee and a donut or a sandwich and a soft drink or a beer. Meet me back here in about 15 or 20 minutes and we'll get this set up. So with that being said, I do want to thank you for being here. Again, I apologize about the audio issues. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.